What benefit does the US get by the influx of immigrants to Europe? You said in a previous podcast that it's the US doing this, changing demography. Well, you see, Europe historically was the greater power. If you look at the history of the past 500 years, Europe was the driver of everything in the world the past 500 years. The Europeans colonized America. The Europeans created these nations in the Americas, South America, North America, etc. Eventually, the US became independent through its war of independence and all. And they were always worried about Europe becoming too powerful in the Western Hemisphere and in the Americas. They were always worried about that. They came up with something called the Monroe Doctrine, which was about keeping the Europeans away, but they were not really strong enough to enforce that. They had to take the help of the UK to kind of enforce the Monroe Doctrine in the 19th century and all. The main worry was Spain for a very long time, for the US and so on. And in the first half of the 20th century, obviously Germany and Russia became big worries for the US, especially Germany. Even today, I think they when you talk about Germany, they can still see those marching boots and those Hugo Boss uniforms, and they can hear Sieg Heil Victoria in the background. So that is something that they still fear. So how do you end this threat once and for all of the possibility that you may have a resurgent Germany someday in the future? How do you end that? So immigration, obviously. See, the one of the core premises of the Third Reich was the idea of racial purity. They stole the concept of the Arya race from us, from Indians, and they appropriated it, they stole it, and they said that the white people are the true Aryans, and that the Germans are the ideal Aryan people, the superior Übermensch, and so on. We are the superior human race of the humans, and we should rule the world. That sort of thing. That only works when you have racial purity, right? If you have large scale immigration, 20% of your nation's population is immigrants of other ethnicities, and then you have mixing, like, what's the term they use, race mixing or whatever, and you have that, and you have a population that's no longer, like they say, racially pure. Then the whole premise of the Third Reich or whatever disappears and melts into nothingness. And that's how you ensure that nation is never a threat in the future. And you can do that to other nations, not just Germany. You can do it to various other nations and compromise and hollow them from inside. You bring in immigrants who don't respect the host nation's culture and values, and they want to impose their own foreign culture and values. And they're intolerant. There's strife. There's all kinds of social tensions, and then the immigrant community becomes the dominant community, and it totally destroys the vitality, health, strength, etc. of the host nation. And by doing so, you can render Europe entirely harmless. So that's one possible reason why this may be done. Europe was a big threat for the longest time for the Americans. Perhaps it's that, or perhaps I'm entirely wrong, and maybe the Europeans actually want immigration and they want violent invaders to come in and do all kinds of bad things. I don't know.